Hello! Hope y'all are all having a wonderful day today. I am Jennifer of Gin and Cocoa. Hope everyone hugs hot chocolate, and I don't know why my camera is doing that. Give me one moment, please. There, that should make you more happy. Alright, with that over, hope y'all are having a wonderful day. Hope you have your mugs of hot chocolate ready, because we are going to be diving in to some more conlanging here. Let's see, last time we left off, we had been discussing... let's see, what had we been discussing last time? We had been discussing... we'd been discussing some phonology, and we had started talking a little bit about some potential jobs. Since then, I've kind of divided up some more things and did some more thinking about what we have. So we divided up between likely jobs for our Flaunal creatures as well as for our avian ones, and so we have some of those distinctions. And we had also looked more, and also since then I've also looked, kind of decided that for our animacy we're not going to make a distinction between masculine and feminine for the avian species. We're just going to stick with just Flaunal and avian distinctions. And I kind of figured out rough ideas of what these could stem from or come from, or yeah, what sort of words could form these animate distinctions. So, as we're carrying on, let's see, there was something else I think I did off camera, and I cannot remember what. Oh, and I just created a very, very rough time frame. So, I was just watching Artifactian's videos on pronouns, and it gave me some things to think about as far as how we're going to use our formality and honorifics here. So, let's dive into that. Okay, so first off, we have here. Let's see. So one thing we said. Okay, well, we're gonna delete this note for a moment because it's not very helpful in the long run. So, one thing that we know is that there are known. We know some titles that exist. We definitely know that there are head of household titles and that there are titles for the eldest child. One thing I was looking at is that there are some languages that do distinctions between generations when it comes to addressing people with pronouns, which I think would be fitting with this, or to an extent. But I think denoting those people who are older than you, like particularly for Flaunal creatures, those who are older than you is important and is an important distinction. So let's write down. So distinctions that we would want to make with things. So, first off, let's see, older Flaunal creatures would get deference. And that is, we're talking about age here, but also older Flaunal creatures, generationally speaking, would also receive deference as well, because in the event that there is no oldest of the oldest child, it would be the oldest living Flaunal creature in that family would be the next head of household. So, yeah. Until a new oldest is born. That makes I think that made more sense when we were talking about our familial structure. I don't want to get too far into that right now, but we'll just say that there are two distinctions that are both important, of age and generation. that are important notes. Okay. So, flaunal creatures that are older than you by age. And that's going to be mostly within your family. And that might extend to encompass avian creatures as well. We'll see as we work with that what makes sense. But for right now, we definitely know that the age in your immediate family, those are important distinctions. Generational cues would be important. Also, okay, actually, we are going to need to go over to our... Let's go over to our proving grounds here. Okay, so the distinctions we'll need to make here. So let's say this is where our ego is. This is us. We're one of these siblings here. Or one of these kids. The people that they would have to give deference to would be... anyone in an older generation, they would have to give deference to. No question on that. Also, let's assume that their family, that right now they only have, that their parental grandparent, for whatever reason, they only have one of, their parental grandparent had no siblings. We'll just say that for the moment, just as a test. Or at least as the head of, or at least was the founder of this household, which is also possible. But so we'll have a parental grandparent founded this household. Their oldest parental, or their oldest sibling, or their oldest child. So I'm using the wrong terms here. Yeah, so your parental grandparent, their oldest child, would have deference, or would have a specific deference, and their oldest... their oldest child would have deference, and their family, and that family is, and also all their children had deference, but particularly their eldest child, and that child would have deference as well as all their kids, particularly their eldest child. So that's right. So people who would have deference to you. Your older siblings would have deference. Your parents would have deference. I may not be using deference right, but whatever. Your grandparents would have deference. All your aunts, uncles, and uncles would have deference, particularly any uncles, and maybe aunts or uncles, but definitely uncles that are older than your parent. And actually, that are older than... particularly ones that are older than your parent specifically. The others would be deferential, but you wouldn't be referring to them as much. So particularly your older, your parent, your uncles that are older than your older parental uncles would have specific deference, different from your younger parental uncles. And their family. So older siblings, parents and their generation, with particular interest in older parental uncles, specifically and especially the oldest parental uncle. Also, your grandparents would receive deference, and their generation, so on and so forth. Ooh, here's an interesting question. So, it would make sense to denote which generation you're speaking to. However, if we're doing that, then yeah, if we're denoting the generation that you're speaking to, we need to figure out how many generations you are likely, or how many generations back you are likely to be speaking towards, because that would distinguish how many levels of deference you would give. And if at some point it just stops and you just start saying ancestor, essentially, or if there essentially just starts becoming a generic, you are so much older than I, that we've lost track. Or that it's not worth coming up with this many terms. Okay, so let's hop back over to the language for a moment. So we have... I'm assuming right now that these are roughly, vaguely equivalent to humans, if not a little bit shorter than human lifespans. I'm thinking 60, 70 years. At least early on, starting off. So, yeah. But then the other question would be, when do they reach sexual maturity and can start having offspring? Because then that would determine, because as soon as they're able to have offspring, that says, like, if it's within 6 years, then that means you could potentially have somewhere between 9 and 11 generations living in a household together, which is a lot. And a lot of people, and especially these would be very, very, very large households, now that I think about it. But they don't necessarily going to require a ton of space in the way that I'm used to having my own space. So, yeah, there's a lot of cultural things to stretch my head around. Hello. Okay. Whew. Okay. I think there's a certain impracticality to... And the other thing to remember is that... So another question is, is there a limit to their sexual reproduction? Like, is there a... We're infertile after this point. Because if that's the case... Let's see, you have... Let's put it this way. What is it? If you have... Okay. Where was I going with this? So... The thing is, like, these creatures are going to be giving birth to multiple children, or this society is going to be giving birth to multiple children every year. Now, actually, one thing to keep in mind is that not every creature will make it. That's something I haven't really talked much about, is, like, survival rate. I've always kind of assumed it's a plant, they just grow. And even I myself can tell you that is just not how it works. I do not have a green thumb. I also know, like, what is the survival rate on birds? Like, just, let me give a quick Google to that. Avian... mortality rate? Avian child mortality rate. There we are, that's what I need. Let's just see what we have here. So I'm seeing one number that says... So one's saying 37% make it through their first year of life. Now, that's in the wild where there's more predators. Part of this whole mutual evolution is that part of this whole mutual evolution is that it provides some defense for the birds. Now let's type in something that's going to produce a really weird Google search. Plant child mortality rate. Oh boy, okay, so, plant child mortality. Okay, that's just coming with child mortality for humans. Okay, we'll look at that one later. But yeah, okay, so we have... Okay, so, the people we need to give deference to. Okay, first let's start with just in family. Older siblings. Actually, okay, so let's do the highest... Let's kind of give an order to these. So we know that... oldest living, oldest... Alright, oldest living, eldest child. Then... other eldest children underneath. Actually, we can actually just simplify this. Eldest children by generation. So these are the potential heads of households. They will get special deference. With the oldest generation getting more deference as far as things go. Next you would have, so that's, okay, so oldest children by generation. With maybe one specifically for current head of household. But I think that would just come with having a highest generational title. And if a current head of household term does come across, it would just come from like the term meaning like ancestral eldest child. Of the eldest child who's so high up. That might actually like become like a term for leader or something like that. There's some possibilities there for how that would get co-opted for other things. So let's see, potential head of house. So let's see, so these are your potential heads of households. And I should say these are the eldest children of eldest children by generation. We also would have we would also be giving deference to. So next you would have other children of her. Other children of eldest children by generation. Everything's here's by generation. And I'm not there may be some more nuance in this one. I think in this one, yes. Your cousin in this case, or your oldest cousin, may actually have. You may give more deference to than your own, or than your mutual grandparent. I think that makes sense. Yeah, and this is this is the through the line specifically. Although there would be like smaller. Oh, it's gonna get complicated real quick, isn't it? Fun times. Well, no, because part of this goes into just the terminology for how you address people. Or how you address your family members in general, so. Yeah. Where I say the complication is when you get past grandparent and start getting into great-grandparents and such. And all the other greats. You get some oddness there, but we'll get back to that. So you have. Let's see. So first, eldest children of eldest children, your heads of or your potential heads of households. Actually, here, let's rephrase that. Potential heads of household by generation. Siblings of potential heads of household. I think that this makes more sense in my head. Or this is clearer in my head at least. Potential heads of or siblings of the potential heads of households. And remember, siblings here means specifically Flaunal siblings. So let's see. Potential heads of households. Siblings of potential heads of households. You would have. Let's see. Eldest child, maybe? Yeah. No, next one's going to be. Let's see. Older generations. Yeah, older generations, then come. Eldest sibling. Ego. Oh, okay, we're assuming, yeah. Well, actually, no, yeah, ego. Because, again, assuming that we're not the head of household, as it were. Brothers and sisters. Brothers, sisters, younger siblings, they would all get same deference. Ooh, interestingly, they could actually all get the same terminology too. That would be interesting. There's a possibility. Okay, brothers, sisters, younger siblings. Maybe. We'll think about that. Yeah, brothers, sisters, younger siblings. We would have. Okay, so potential heads of household by generation. Siblings up to their potential heads of household by generation. Older generations, in order, I should say, by generation. Brothers, sisters, younger siblings. Oldest child. Sons, daughters, children. It's eldest child, son, daughters, and children. Actually, we'll say, technically, okay, hold up. So these would be like your... so yeah, this here, eldest child amongst each older generation by generation. So you would have... Okay, so this would mean eldest child amongst older generations by generation. What that means is that you would give more deference to your... you give more deference to your grandparents' oldest sibling than you would to your own grandparents. And you would give more deference to your oldest paternal uncle than you would to your own parents. And I think that's going to follow by generation. So I think the order would be like, it would be like your grandparents' eldest sibling, then your grandparents, then your parents' eldest sibling, then your parents, then you, or then your oldest sibling, then you, then your oldest child, then you, or then your oldest child. Dip-a-dip-a-dip-a-doo. And yeah, that pattern amongst younger, younger generations. By generation. Amongst. So, and I should note that these two are. Ooh, actually, hold on. Here's what I'll do. Merge by and same thing here. There's gotta be an easier button to just merge, right? Nope, okay, we're doing this the hard way. I love Excel, but getting the formatting how you want it to do sometimes is just a pain. Okay. There we are. So noting that these, there's an order to these. It's a 1, 1, 2, next generation, 1, 2, next generation, and such. Okay, awesome. So, that is the level of deference you would need to give to everyone, and I believe that there's going to be specific terms, although I think that there's going to be some patterning to them, at least initially, before evolutionary timelines have their say. So, whew, this is a lot here. And that's just within your family. That's not even looking at other families, or how you respect people outside your family as well. Oh boy. And what sort of terms they'll get. However, I do think that this provides us a good, an interesting basis for our terminology system. I know I had mentioned earlier about using a Sudanese system where kind of everyone has these unique terms, but I think this more accurately, I think following something similar to this, there's going to be some more specificity than this as far as like terms, like you and your spouse, husband, wife, which depending on which ego you are of that trio. I don't think all three of you are going to have the same term, particularly, or at least as far as like, you aren't going to, well, maybe, who knows, but I'm also not certain that you would call your brothers, sisters, and younger siblings the same thing. One thing to note is that it's also likely that avian creatures might have an additional term to use when they're referring to their family that they were born from, versus the one they marry into, because those are, when the avian pair changes families, they change over to, when the avian pair moves in with their Flaunal creature, they join that family. and all that. So. And it would be important for them to remember who is who in their family to a certain extent. So, yeah. Okay. There is a lot to consider here. It would be important for the avian species to keep track of their lineage for matters of, we'll put it this way, avoiding marriage taboo. Or avoiding reproductive taboo, let's put it that way. Who is going to be the one keeping track of that? For the flaunal creatures, the person who is in charge of keeping track of generations and families is the head of the household. And potential heads of household down the line. They're the ones that learn, or that maintain and learn who is who, how are we all related, who is the oldest, in the order of all that. I don't think that they would also learn the avian lines for everyone who marries into their family. So, there may be, it might be worth noting a similar role for the avian species of essentially, so another eldest, no, I know who it would be. It would be the spouses of the potential head of household, or of the potential heads of household. Those avian spouses would likely keep track of some of that, but not all of it. Because that's a lot, and that could potentially be a lot of information to keep track of. Because you would not only need to keep track of... Okay, well, let's look at this. So first, each mother and father would likely keep track of and they would know their own family, and who that they were born to. However, I'm not sure how much that would get passed down of your essentially your grandparents' family, your grandmother and your grandfather's families. I'm not sure how much of that would get passed on or retained easily. To the avian species. Because that could potentially be a lot of information to carry, because not only do you have to know, keep track of who your parents were related to, but then you would also have to keep track of kind of where some of them have gone off to an extent. Maybe not quite, but maybe I'm making this more complicated than it actually is. Yeah, I think I'm making this more complicated than it is. Yeah, I think for avian creatures, it would be more of just asking. I think the avian creatures are going to work similar, are going to behave somewhat similarly to almost a modern English culture, where because once the couple marries, they move. I mean, they're house hunting immediately. Um, so yeah, one thing I've also hadn't considered much is how. Okay, going back a moment, I realize I'm jumping a lot over the place. How long are these creatures in the nest? I had kind of always assumed 1 year, but the more I think of that, the less likely that seems. Um, I mean, let me. Yeah. I could see them. Yeah, so the more I see. Like, the way I'm seeing it right now is I'm kind of having 1-year-old birds often mating, which may be accurate. Um, yeah, I haven't looked too much into the childhood of this culture yet, and I think that's something I need to consider more of. I think I have some ideas. Um, I think this presents some things that we should talk about next time of how youth and childhood is uh, works in this civilization. I have some ideas that I think would work, and I'll write those down for us to discuss on Friday. So I think this is where we're going to leave it off for today. Thank you for staying for my ramblings as we worked out how all of this right here, because this is important. I think this is more important than knowing than this chart right here. So this just looks nice and neat and organized. And like I said, it's gonna get more complicated as we add in how do you refer to people outside of families, how our terminologies stay the same or not. So giving deference to people will be interesting. But I very much appreciate this so far. We are going to have a lot of terms to refer to people by. I don't think that was a question when I knew I was going to have essentially a trio of genders. But, yeah, this is gonna get... Ooh, This terminology is going to get real complicated real quick, and I'm kind of down for it, to be honest. It's going to be very, very interesting. Thank you for everyone who joined me today. I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your days. I'm going to hop onto Twitch in a moment after I set up a few things on the background here. But thank you for coming, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. I will see you again at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern on Friday.